will turn now to Father Bob Dowd for final comment. And also, as he joins us, want to thank him and his team for such great work over the last 2 days. Bob?
Thank you, Don, and thank you, Sister Norma, Stacy, Joan, and Dylan. That was a fabulous final session. I can't think of a better way to bring this conference to a close. We may be bringing this conference to a close, but the work continues. In fact, the work begins in earnest from this point forward. First, I just want to offer some words of thanks. I'll be brief, but first of all, to the great team at the Center for Migration Studies. It's been just fabulous working with Daniela Alulema and Don Kerwin, Melissa Katsoris, Emma Winters, and Guadalupe Chavez, and the whole Center for Migration Studies team. It's been great to work together on this conference. I also want to thank here at Notre Dame, our team at Notre Dame, other members of our team, Teresa Hanlon, Ilaria Schneider, Guadalupe Ramirez, Guadalupe Gomez, and Karen Clay. They worked really, really hard, and I think they did an amazing job. I also want to thank our tech people. We couldn't have pulled this off without our tech people. So the tech people at the Keough School of Global Affairs, Tim Checkley and Eric Neasley, and their team at Notre Dame Studios. We really are so grateful. And then institutes here at Notre Dame that really helped us to pull this off. First and foremost, the Kellogg Institute for International Studies. We really could not have pulled this conference off without the support of the Kellogg Institute, so many thanks to the Kellogg Institute. The Nanovic Institute for European Studies, the Keough-Naughton Institute for Irish Studies, and the Institute for Latino Studies were also instrumental in the success of the conference. I also want to thank Notre Dame International for their support. As I mentioned at the very beginning of the conference yesterday, we had originally planned to have this conference in person, but then we decided back at the end of May that we would instead host a virtual conference. And although there have been some minor technical difficulties here and there, now and then, I think overall it went well. And the great thing about going virtual is that it made the conference much more inclusive than it would be otherwise. We had 60 people, 60 countries represented, believe it or not, among all of the participants. And so that's a huge blessing. And it's a huge blessing that money wasn't an object to participation, that we were able to hold this conference without a registration fee. So really, I'm grateful to everyone who participated in this conference and made it as rich as it was. Just a few concluding reflections for me, and then I'll turn it over to Don. I think the Cardinal Journey mentioned something really important for us to reflect on: the importance of resisting and defeating indifference, invisibility, and individualism. He talked a bit about the importance of a new normal. And hopefully this new normal will have a greater sense of community, that we would achieve a greater sense of community. And we all need to feel like we belong if we're going to flourish as individuals and as a society. And we know that it's possible for people to belong legally, although it can be very difficult for people to belong legally in a society. But even once people do belong legally, it's possible that they don't feel like they don't belong socially or culturally. That there are forces at work that lead people to feel like they do not belong, that they are still strangers. And because of that, we certainly have a whole lot of work to do. It's been inspiring to have so many people come together doing amazing work. And this conference has asked the question, how can the church do better at promoting the communities of belonging that the world needs? Here in the United States, we're on the eve, at least about 32 days away from a very important presidential election. And regardless of the outcome, we're going to have work to do. It's quite possible that one kind of outcome will mean even more work to do, but regardless of the outcome of that election, we're going to have work to do. And so this conference has really given us an amazing opportunity to rededicate ourselves to doing whatever it takes to build the communities of belonging that we all need. So thanks everyone for being so inspiring, for sharing your inspiring work with us. And thanks for coming together as we do our best to rededicate ourselves to doing whatever it takes to build the kind of communities of belonging that we're called to by our God and by our social teaching of the church. Let's do our best to be there for one another in this work and to build the kind of communities that we really desire and that God calls us to build. Don.
Really beautifully put. Thank you. I thought I'd just end with a few themes and maybe words of wisdom over the last 2 days. First, we speak a lot about person-centered work and the overarching need to be open to the needs and gifts of migrants and refugees. As Pope Francis reminds us, we need to know in order to understand, then act. And I had a very clear sense over the last 2 days of that ethic in action. The new ways of doing work, the new services, the new groups assisted, the increased demand for the regular work, the steady state services that people provide, the new partnerships, the advocacy, and a sense of the remarkable variety and scope of the work, all of it rooted in an experience of human need. I was very proud of the Catholic participants in this and the agencies that participated. Second, we heard a lot about how this work is central to our own tradition, rooted in Catholic teaching and our identity as a church without borders. It's holy, as one speaker said. Many referred to the Catholic vision of hospitality and integration as creating a home for all of us, a home of charity, which one speaker called immediate love, and justice, which she called longer-term love, which I had never heard, and I thought that was very beautiful. Third, it was a hopeful 2 days, I think, based on your work and your witness. Channeling Pope Francis, Cardinal Czerny said that the pandemic creates the opportunity to address the underlying injustices and inequalities which COVID-19 has exploited, because it shows us definitively that we're all in the same boat and that there's no going back from this crisis and backtracking. COVID has accentuated the deeper truth that there's no us and them, and there's no other before God, that they are us. Fourth, we heard over and over about the importance of partnerships, collaboration, and solidarity, and that disunity and differences bring nothing but misery. And it reminded me of a story I just read about this wise basketball coach, believe it or not, who had a particularly talented but self-centered player. And in one practice, the coach told the player that he was indeed a superb player, so good that he should go out into the court and show his teammates how to play the game. And the player did, and he asked if someone could throw him an inbounds pass, and the coach said no. And the player replied that he couldn't throw the ball to himself. And the coach said, that's exactly the point. You need others. And I think I came out of this conference thinking, yeah, that's true. We all need others. We really need others right now to get out of these crises and to address them in the ways that they need to be addressed. Fifth, these multiple crises have led to a lot of innovation and creativity, but they also brought a lot of the speakers back to the very basic of our values, our tradition, and wisdom. And I was impressed listening to our speakers with how much of that faith and wisdom seems to come from immigrants themselves, including a number of speakers that mentioned what their immigrant parents had taught them. Also, I didn't hear much about financial deficits and the struggles of Catholic agencies financially, which I know exist, they definitely do. And we usually hear a lot about that in these conferences. What I did hear a lot about was how immigrants are one of the greatest, if not the greatest resource that we have in this work, which I thought was kind of a beautiful message. So let me just end with a few parting words from event participants, which I found to be meaningful. There are no solutions without migrants as protagonists. Migrants can be instruments of solidarity. It takes a community to welcome a stranger, and it takes a stranger to build a community. The immigrant saves the church doesn't save the immigrant. On racism, you can't straighten a crooked branch. Freedom is for, not from. It allows us to participate in the life of the community. It allows us to love our neighbors and to become a neighbor. Some Catholics say they don't understand Pope Francis's message, but farm workers and day laborers understand this message perfectly. We belong to each other. There's always room at the table, especially in the worst of times. Catholic teaching itself played a major role in integrating past generations of immigrants, and it resonates very powerfully with young Catholics today. And finally, we separate faith from life. I wanted to end with that and to thank you all for your work, your witness, the inspiration you've provided over the last 2 days and over the course of your vocation, and of course for participating in this event. And we do hope to stay in touch with you. Thank you. Thank you, Father Dowd and the Notre Dame team for hosting us.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Many blessings.